What's next for a neighborhood under siege? We'll have to wait and see. Reporting live, Sadie Sinclair, Channel 7 News.
Talked about it before, how Zionists are not satisfied with owning politicians, real estate, surveillance tech companies, all of these different sectors. They also want to own culture. I grew up going to punk and riot girl shows and also raves in the 90s. And these were scenes that absolutely helped me form and test my politics, even if politics were not the point or the reason I was drawn to these scenes initially. Clearly, if the scene means anything to you, if it's a place where you're making art and it's a place involving expression, of course you want to make it as aligned as possible with what you believe. That's what I'm going to be talking about with three people who DJ and throw parties here in the Bay: Daria Lourd, DJ Fridge, and Juanny. They're throwing parties outside the Boiler Room Industrial Complex. What is Boiler Room? Boiler Room is a global event promotion company known for enlisting local DJs and promoters to produce Boiler Room branded parties around the world. This year, Boiler Room was acquired by a Zionist private equity firm, Superstruct KKR, and many people have been pulling out of Boiler Room events as a result. Thank you to Kira for connecting us, and also thank you to Christopher and Clark and Megan. They went to patreon.com/SadFrancisco and subscribed and pulled me a little bit closer to the point where I am not begging for cash at the beginning of each of these episodes. I know that day will someday come. In the show notes, there are details for some of the parties that are, again, going to be held outside of this Boiler Room ecosystem, this sort of like monopoly that Boiler Room is trying to create, including at some of the venues that I used to DJ at. Hello to Jules and Craig. All right, sweet. So I'm going to just go straight into the questions. Thank you for being here. Could each of you just, introduce yourself, say your name, and what people might know you by?
Sure. I'll start, I suppose. Hi, my name is Ben. People may know me as DJ Fridge, based in San Francisco. I'm a DJ, radio host, event producer. People might know my accessible nightlife series called Crip Ecstasy, where we're throwing events catered to the disabled community. Might know me from my Hide FM show, Bedtime Routine, every third Tuesday, or might know me from other things. But yeah, that's me.
Sweet. Jorge, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. My name's Jorge. People might know me for like my artist name, DJ Juanny, and maybe through my work as a DJ, producer, graphic designer, and I run a studio in the Excelsior with some friends, and I run a party series called Amor Digital that's approaching 7 years, which is pretty crazy. So, yep.
Okay, my turn. My name is Daria Lourd. People also know me as Board Lord, as a DJ and producer. I'm a longtime volunteer at Lower Grand Radio. I work behind the desk at Cone Shaped Top, both in Oakland, and I'm a longtime member of No Bias.
Cool. Yeah. I would love to hear more about these projects, as we're kind of talking through the questions that I sent over. Today, we're going to be talking about the boycott of Boiler Room that has been happening in places across the world, but in particular has taken off in San Francisco and has sort of initiated a parallel party scene outside of the ecosystem of Boiler Room. But maybe we could start with like explaining to people who have never been to a Boiler Room party or have no idea what Boiler Room is. What is Boiler Room?
So much to
I
take
know
in
we'll
there.
have to
So much to
decide
say.
who goes first.
Yeah. I could call on people.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Daria, you want to start?
Yeah, I definitely have had a lot of experience with Boiler Room in the past. So Boiler Room is a video streaming DJ platform and production company that developed into a production company for in-person parties as well. It started in the UK in the London scene, early aughts, and kind of started as a more underground thing. Started kind of in like the boom of social media, early SoundCloud, early like YouTube DJ culture.
Hmm.
Really caught that wave before a lot of people did, and therefore like grew in size into a production company that then goes to local scenes and throws events, commonly like you'll see a Boiler Room and then the city that they're doing it in, which at first somewhat represented this idea of like, oh, this is a party from that scene that's supposed to
Hmm.
represent that scene, and then has definitely distorted and grown into something that is more has nothing almost to do with the local environment sometimes.
Gotcha.
Not always the case, but it's become a little more extractive where they go into scenes, book really big artists, and then maybe book some local people to bring in bodies.
Uh-huh. Gotcha. And like Ben, maybe you could answer like for DJs and performers, what is so enticing about working for Boiler Room or working with Boiler Room?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most basic answer to it is they're just, especially at this point, like kind of an institution. They're just a big deal. They have a lot of money. Um, they're super well known, people who aren't that, especially now that aren't that tapped into dance music, know what Boiler Room is. It's
Right.
become, especially to be a DJ and have your own Boiler Room set filmed, is kind of this like I've made it moment, and
Mm,
whether you're a DJ or, a DJ who's being filmed or working with Boiler Room in some other capacity, that's going to look really good on your sort of resume. It's going to, people are going to respect that. And for better or for worse, and I think we would all argue for worse, they've become this just really powerful institution. And I think a lot of people think that, like, oh, if you've worked for Boiler Room, you must be a big deal. You must be really good. So it can be a really big stepping stone um, in your career. And also, I think because they're so big, I know for DJs my age, I'm 25, so people who kind of came up and started DJing post internet, the kind of beginning that Daria was talking about, like I got into DJing largely because of Boiler Room. Um, or that they were hugely influential on me. So I think people also see it as this kind of like full circle moment for especially a lot of younger DJs who may have been like inspired or at least spent a lot of time watching Boiler Room videos coming up. So yeah, so I think there's a lot of reasons that it makes sense, but I think as we'll like get into later, I think it's become a bad thing that they are so huge and they are such a big deal, and people put so much
wait.
emphasis and so much importance and weight on working with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brand that I had heard of, like, just out in the ether, like, seeing, I guess, like flyers, posters around. And I mean, it is like one of those things where it's like the promise of the internet initially was to connect people. And then, hopefully at some point, like those people could also like interact in some way, like off of the internet. And so it sounds like initially it was like a sort of positive force. But like, if you know, Jorge, like, are there things that using Boiler Room just makes like easier? Think like, I was thinking about like all of the things that it takes to like throw a party that are kind of more behind the scenes that, like, if you're just attending, you might not think about. Do they take care of like some of like the stuff, like, permitting, promotion? Do they have pre-existing relationships with venues?
Yeah, I feel like I can speak to this because there was one Boiler Room, I think 2 or 3 years ago, that like Amor de Hitao was tasked with like curating the room, and they just have like resources, because we were able to book bigger acts than like I personally would be able to bring out or like have the budget for. So that, yeah, but I would be honest, like, I mean, they help, but they still enlist like local people to do much of the like legwork and promotion,
Mm.
I would say, like, but they just have the money to do that. And like, uh I remember they had contracted with someone else who was on the base show with us to do a lot of that local promotion and like production. But they do like fly somebody out from, at that time they flew somebody out from like the UK, like the London office, to be here for like that whole weekend and be the point person at the 3 different venues where those Boiler Rooms were taking place. But yeah, they definitely have budget for like making like a flyer for like each single artist that was like on it. And when they do the video production, I know they often contract with like local video producers to record it, stuff like that.
And do you know, like, at what point, all of a sudden, this production company, that started on the internet, um, when it became more like kind of obviously Zionist entity?
Should I answer
I I,
first?
I got some
Oh yeah,
info
Go
on
for
it.
it.
yeah.
Well, it's kind of hard to say when they weren't. Um,
Mm,
there is kind of an aspect of something that was around the conversation in probably 2020, 2021. They did specifically have for a while a ex-IDF person on their board. So this was kind of something that was in the ether already. And
mm.
then they also, while they publicly produced a like Boiler in Palestine event, um, like the irony of that is not lost on people.
Oh, so
Um,
they're producing events in Israel, like, Izzy, like, this
well,
is,
well, I mean, they did like one that was supposed like in Palestine. They had
yeah,
Palestine DJs, and they kind of like produced it. I don't know how to explain. You'd have to like watch it to kind of see the tone that they're utilizing. But it's like while they're doing that, there is someone on the board who is ex-IDF and
right.
like is openly Zionist. So the I mean, a lot of this has to do with the contradiction of like the way that they present themselves and then what's actually going on behind the scenes.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, capitalism at work, where they're like profiting off of potentially, yeah, these, it sounds like, events that are like Palestine DJ focused, and ultimately who makes probably the most money off of the events is, yeah, like, potentially Zionist. But yeah, Ben, did you have any, yeah, words about that, or like, what people should know about how they became this, the company is called like Superstruct, or
Hmm.
KKR is the target
Yeah.
equity?
I can speak to that a little bit. So,
Cool.
like Daria said, even in what people would call like the heyday of Boiler Room, or at least in the past, right? Like there's been signs that, you know, they might not be this like bastion of underground, you know, resistance culture for a while. But what really kicked things off was it was early 2025. I can't remember off the top of my head if it was January or February. But I think one of those months they were bought by Superstruct Entertainment. Um, Superstruck Entertainment is this big global dance music brand that owns a bunch of festivals in Europe and similar dance music institutions. And they are owned by KKR, which is one of the largest global investment firms in the world. It's invested in all sorts of horrible things, such as like the fossil fuel industry. It has investments in Israeli tech companies. Um, there's a lot of information out there online. Any kind of thing you could imagine a evil global investment firm would be involved in, they most likely are. So it was after that public sale of the company to Superstruct that there became a global boycott movement, which I'm sure we'll get to, that led to the show in San Francisco or in Oakland that we're talking about.
Cool. Yeah. So this is like all happening this year. And I mean, a very like part of like BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions, which most people listening to this podcast will know. But like it is, I was like interested to talk to y'all because I do think it's like just an example of like the way that people are like bringing like BDS into like their different scenes, and which I like, yeah, I appreciate a lot. It feels like we should be able to like have a place to have, yeah, like to throw parties where there's not at the end of the night like a bunch of Zionists who are gonna like pull from the you know, all the profits. So like KKR is a private equity group. um does anyone feel, you know, comfortable with like talking a little bit about private equity?
I mean, I know more about KKR's specific case. Private equity can
Yeah.
be a lot of different, can work in a lot of different ways. I know that KKR specifically, they do kind of they're like a larger global investment and private equity firm. So they have like a huge portfolio, like hundreds and hundreds of portfolios, where some private equity firms are more focused. KKR is pretty global and
Diverse.
pretty
Yeah.
diverse for sure. I mean, and a lot of the ways that they profit is through portfolio exchanges and through like investing in companies that then grow in size, so that way they can move money around. And sometimes even intentionally sink companies, depending on if they can pick their parts or there's all kinds of ways that these companies interact with things. A lot of like monopolizing is a big common thing. Investment firms going into certain industries and buying a lot of different parts of it. So like a good example with KKR in this is like how they didn't just buy Boiler Room. They bought Boiler Room, they bought Superstruct, which is like a huge festival corporation that throws a lot of different festivals. And then Boiler Room also bought a common ticket platforming thing called Dice. So when KKR buys in to these things, they then own and control the flow of funds between
Right.
several different aspects of people interacting in nightlife. It's not just like, oh, we brought this one company, they went and bought a bunch of stuff at once. So it's kind of like overnight, all of a sudden, KKR owns a bunch of these things, hoping that their intention is that these things grow. And then through them growing, they can either move their funds around to other investments, or they can sell them off to then invest in another, whatever their next adventure is. You know?
Yeah. Thank you for that explanation. I feel like it like covered everything that I wanted to cover. Just looking at like the list of companies that they're invested in. I mean, it's like a lot of companies in China. They have like 1-800 contacts. They have the Bay Club, which is like private like gym memberships, and then Dice. Yeah, I bought tickets off of Dice
Yeah,
for an event before. It's like Ticketmaster, sort of.
Yeah, it's a Ticketmaster competitor, for sure. I mean, they're even invested in real estate here. They were KKR acquired the Exchange in San Francisco, which is like a big real estate office complex. They also have an office in downtown that they acquired for something. Can't remember, but yeah, Bay Club as well. Like, just very much like their investments are so widespread that like every time it touches down a new city, like the city with the boiler room thing, it's like the irony is that KKR is already kind of tied in to that like
Right.
local place anyway. Like here we can say
Yeah.
real estate. In London they can say that like KKR is invested in public water there, you know. And then also happens to be invested in like a lot of Israeli tech and even a lot of military here in the United States.
Yeah. And so, you know, like when it was made like public and more people started to recognize that this was an undeniable connection to the state of Israel, there was a lot of people in cities across the world started to like, I guess, you know, organize like online about like boycotting boiler room parties. And in San Francisco earlier this year, like one of the first to come out of like this global campaign happened, as you mentioned, Ben, in Oakland. How did that come together?
I think for me personally, I think the first domino that fell in the San Francisco or just larger Bay Area scene that ended up leading to the party was Jorge's announcement that they were taking themselves out of consideration for the boiler room party. So would you maybe want to talk about like your process for that decision, and then we can go from there?
Yeah, for sure. So I got an email basically. It's funny, like I feel like I sensed it was coming in some way because I saw Kumi, Bay Exploitation, who's an LA DJ who I admire a lot, um, like posted about pulling out of Boiler Room, and I didn't know that it was. I'm pretty sure it was the Boiler Room that we were supposed to be doing. But at the time I didn't know, and I was just like, all right, like I feel like if they ask me, I gotta like it's just gotta say no. And then like the next day I got the email from Boiler Room. And I'd already signed on to PACB, like the like uh Palestinian arts and culture boycott.
Yeah.
And so kind of like already knowing that I had signed on to that, it was a pretty easy decision, honestly, in that moment, to kind of just explain that I didn't want to work with Zionists or break the boycott. Yeah, there was definitely some discussion because of the endorse. There was like there was like a weird half endorsement at that time as well with yeah, it was PACB, because Boiler Room was like because the staff at Boiler Room like didn't necessarily choose who they were sold to, that because they had denounced like Israel, that maybe it would still be possible to work with them. But the argument that we made was that by us working with Boiler Room, we would be voluntarily complicit in genocide because of their involvement. Like Boiler Room might not, the staff at Boiler Room might not have chosen who their new parent company is, but we as independent workers can choose to work with Boiler Room or not. So to me, it was still adhering to BDS and PACB. And yeah, at that point, I didn't know who else had been approached by Boiler Room, but then like other people started pulling out, and then I think that's also when No Bias got involved, because that's when they started thinking through a strike fund. So maybe Daria can talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. How do we jump in on all that? I guess there had already been some discussion around this stuff before in the scene, and I was talking to a lot of people who had also, I don't know, been involved in things outside of dance music with like worker unionizing or other kind of organizing political stuff. And we were trying to brainstorm things around these ideas. And in no way am I like denouncing PACB or BDS in this. I just don't think they really had experience or understanding of how musicians interact with these companies when they made their public support. And I also think that their game is more of a long game that has a lot to do with trying to get large public support. Yeah, I mean, there was a chapter of bass like ours in New York City that very directly took our model. There's people that were doing stuff in Amsterdam. There are people that shut down one recently in Sao Paulo. There are people that are organizing around Toronto, around DC, which these shows might happen by the time this airs, or not happen, hopefully. So it's an international movement at this point. There's definitely people that organize in Denver. They had a really successful fundraiser there. So it's inspired a lot of people to like not just critique it, but also try to create alternatives for it, which I think is really important.
Definitely something I'm always trying to work on. Cool. And so like Jorge was like mentioning there was even a point at which like Boiler Room itself like came out and like released an open letter in response to what they obviously saw, which was a lot of pushback from people that they had worked with as far as like performers and artists.
I mean, BDS and PACB, I think, even publicly supported them around this. I mean, they do have an approach that very much is, it's not about the individual people and the individual companies. It's about their open support or complicit interaction with the state of Israel. And I love a lot of the work that they do. Everyone is a human being and not everyone understands everything that they're interacting with in real time, So I think that for us as workers inside of this like industry, we had to make decisions for ourselves and understand that we knew that we were in alliance with people who might not understand what they're doing, And so part of that was like BDS has tried to work with other platforms that were in Superstruct, and they've tried to come to the table with them. That was kind of their approach. Try to get concessions, try to get them to cut off sponsorships, try to get them to publicly denounce KKR, which some companies did, but the statements don't get rid of the material reality, and that also has nothing to do with us as individual workers, Like if the Boiler Room staff wants to organize, if the Boiler Room staff wants to publicly make their statements, we support them. It doesn't mean that we have to work for Boiler Room. And so part of that understanding of that is also understanding that like the individual workers and the like all these resources that we're talking about that Boiler Room has, like these individual workers go to Boiler Room and accept Boiler Room's things, because they think it will level up their career, right? Like visibly, but also financially. Like it gives them, and I mean, a lot of the people who are working on this, like really a lot of our income comes from this work, So there's like if you've already agreed and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get paid more than I usually get paid for a gig, this is going to cover my rent, I don't have to do this or that or this, and then all of a sudden you're pulling out, or you're getting pressured to pull out, and you maybe don't know why, or you do know why, but you're feeling conflicted because you have to take care of yourself, there needs to be a safety net. So in a very old school union tactic, we just decided, well, we'll create a strike fund, and whoever needs to pull out of this, if they can't afford it, we'll pay them, and we kind of said it offhandedly, like we posted it on No Bias, and we're like, we'll pay you to pull out of the party. But once the reality actually hit, it's true that there were people that pulled out that needed these finances, and so we all started to organize all those people together and see who needed them and how we can even raise those funds realistically. Because the other issue with Boiler Room having so many resources is that they can take the same $2,000 check, they can go over here and they go, do you want to play? And if you say no, then you need $2,000 now that you turned down. And then they'll go to the next person, they'll be like, do you want this $2,000? And every time someone says no who needs the money, anyone who's trying to organize a strike fund has to raise that amount of money again. And we're DIY trying to raise thousands of dollars to support our community, and they're a corporation taking the same $2,000 and wiggling it around the scene until someone bites,
Right. But so you were able to create a prototype for a party, in a way, outside of the system of Boiler Room that happened in Oakland. How did that come together?
I remember very vividly everything we just talked about happened within a day on Instagram stories. All of this is happening primarily on Instagram stories. Jorge dropping out, No Bias raising the strike fund. And I remember being on Instagram that day and honestly just being very inspired, and also seeing No Bias raising hundreds of dollars in a day, maybe even more than hundreds of dollars. Just again, in a day off Instagram stories. There seemed to just be a ton of energy around this, both around Palestine, it was another, a lot of people are posting, talking about Palestine again because of this boycott. And a lot of people are examining their relationship to these corporate art institutions, that still almost laughably at this point are claiming to be underground culture. And I was like, that's sick. This is cool. I want to harness this in some bit. So I reached out to originally people at No Bias, and because they throw a party every year at the same time as the Portola Festival, which is this very expensive music festival that happens once a year in San Francisco. And No Bias will usually throw a party the same weekend, kind of parody Portola's marketing and their own marketing, kind of make this anti-party that all the yuppies are going to this super expensive luxury festival, come have a good old classic No Bias party at this venue. So originally I was just kind of let's do that, but for this Boiler Room party, and I reached out to No Bias, reached out to Jorge, reached out to Program, which is another just fantastic local group that also publicly turned down their Boiler Room invitation around this time, and really didn't have a form of what it was going to look like. But I was there must be something cool we can do here, both to raise money and to just kind of capitalize on this energy that's happening. And everyone was super game, and we started planning. And then we were able to add Fake and Gay, which is another just fantastic local event group that also dropped out. And we went from there, and there was just it happened pretty quickly. There was a month and a half, 2 months of planning, and we had this really amazing party in Oakland at this fantastic artist space, and it went really well. We raised more than enough money. We got to pay everyone the checks they would have got. We got to donate thousands of dollars on top of that. it was great. I don't know if other people have more to add about the process, but it was really, I know for me it was honestly a pretty like transformative experience just in my like organizing career to do something that cool.
I love that. Yeah, no, I mean, at a time when like if we have politicians that are not going to like disavow Israel, like it just makes sense to me, like whatever scenes we happen to be involved with, if we can, yeah, finding these ways that like we can sort of push back against Zionism. I love it. Yeah, like I know there was like a party that was going to be thrown called SOSF, that like Kehlani and a bunch of people who were performing there, I think Fake and Gay also pulled out of that one as well. So like a bunch of people in like scenes around the Bay that have like been throwing the parties here for years, like are basically saying like we don't want to work with like kind of you know being very mindful about like yeah who they're who's profiting from their parties. Yeah, it's inspiring to me as well.
Yeah, I have something to add really quick
Yeah.
on that thought. I mean, I think it was both a, like what you just said, like a really awesome and inspiring just group of artists, at the end of the day, a group of laborers like coming around and like, let's, make decisions in solidarity with Palestine, right? And like against, the state of Israel. I also think though it also just speaks to the amount of power, both in dance music, and I'm sure this is true for a lot of other facets of life, that we give these big institutions that have been around for so long. And it can be so hard to imagine a world without them. Because I think it really got to the point with Boiler Room where not only was it like the morally right decision, but just like from talking, and both of you have worked with Boiler Room more than I have, but I also think it just kind of sucked at this point. Like they were so far removed from where they started that, like, yes, you maybe were going to get paid a little more, but like it wasn't going to be that good of a party. It wasn't going to be. It was just it's going to be a bad overall experience for the people who work
Mm.
and for the people that come, and so it's just interesting that like artists, people are still giving this institution like so much weight and credit. And I think like for me it was a chance to like look at like what other things do we do that for. Do we just be like, this is the cool awesome thing that I would be so lucky to work with? And like I think there's probably a lot of stuff that if you take a step back, you could like, not only can I remove my labor from this evil corporation, but I can also just do something better with being my friends. That's just going to be a better party that pays better, that has better music, that is a better time for people that come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really Boiler Room is a really good example of kind of the inevitability of corporate art inside of somewhere like the United States, like an imperial country, a capitalist country, that inevitably, the bigger the money is, the more obviously tied to imperialism it's going to be. Like that is our biggest economic force. And you always have to wonder where your money is coming from, Like if you do a DIY event like we did, we know that the people walking in the door like worked for the money that art was going to these funds, And we know that their intention and where their belief system is coming from. But when you're accepting a check from someone that you don't get to look at eye to eye, and it's a larger check than you're used to, you have to wonder, why is that? And who is it that's signing that check?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just feels like automatically, if you go to one of these kind of post boiler room parties, there's a better chance that you're like there experiencing a night, yeah, with people who are like somewhat at least like sharing in values more generally. So appreciate that too.
Yeah.
Jorge, yeah, wondering if you have thoughts.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I can confirm because last year for Portola, Boiler Room partnered with Portola, and they asked me to like host like a day before the event, and I went. So I might be like the last person that did it in the city, and it was oh my god, it was just like, I mean, like, no shade to the artists who performed at that time, but I was just like, the vibes are just rancid, honestly. So it had just gotten to a point where there was just like really no benefit other than like the money, you know. And so at a certain point, like the money's just not even close to being worth it.
Yeah, for sure. Would you let people know a little bit about like the parties that you throw in the city or the Bay more generally?
Yeah, for sure. So I throw a party called Amor Digital. Yeah, it's definitely focused on like club music that's has roots in like Latin America and the Caribbean. Definitely like Afro Caribbean diaspora music. Um, and yeah, we're approaching 7 years of AD. And yeah, the show that I'm really excited about is going to be on October 25th. We're partnering with No Bias as part of our 7 year anniversary. And yeah, I mean, I think all of us love No Bias a lot, so I'm always really hyped to work with No Bias. I feel like they represent the Bay in the best possible way.
Cool. Yeah, could somebody like talk a little bit about No Bias and its place here?
Yeah, No Bias is the brainchild of Tall Robinson, who is a DJ and producer, Richard, who is not here with us right now. But yeah, they're San Francisco born and raised, really talented musician themselves. They started No Bias a while back as like something to release their own music on, then slowly started throwing parties, kind of post-COVID era. But as someone who'd been in the scene for a long time, they like already knew everybody, so everyone was kind of on board to jump on their parties. I think I played the second one ever, and it was like maybe like 50 people at Bricks, if you know what Bricks is, in
Hell yeah, I remember
downtown.
that show. Yeah,
Yeah, that was super fun. It's actually where I met my wife. Funny
hell yeah.
anecdote. But
Newlywed. Yeah.
yeah, and it's grown over the past few years is probably one of the best representations, I would say, like what's above ground Bay Area dance music underground scene in a way, you know. Definitely started in a lot of smaller venues, a lot of renegades, building up to now where they just ended a 3-year thing at Underground SF and are now have a residency at F8, which is unheard of, honestly. F8 is usually a little more mainstream. Yeah, I think it's like by far the most diverse and maybe one of the only like local party series that tries to collaborate with other party series in a way that's more about cultural exchange than it is about profit. And yeah, I mean, you can go to a No Bias show and see someone who's extremely seasoned DJ, and then see someone who might have started a few months ago, all in one night. So yeah, shout out to Tall for all the work that they do. They're really like not a person who would ever put themselves out there. They're very humble and very quiet about their abilities and talents and skills. Cool. And the scene owes them a lot.
Thank you to Tall.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bay show would have never happened. They were the first person that I was able to reach out to, kind of like with the idea to throw something, because we'd worked together before, and I think them kind of coming on board and like throwing No Bias's weight behind it really gave the show some momentum, where we ended up like picking up all these other local crews. So they were really played a really big role in making the show happen. And yeah, love Tal.
Yeah, like would love to hear other projects that you all are working on, and also like favorite venues in the city or the Bay more generally. Jorge, maybe would you be down to start?
Yeah. Well, I would say like on like an emotional level, my favorite venues have been like all the places we've done like Renegades, which shall not be named. But generally like that's usually like the best vibes and uh yeah, everyone on this call like will probably know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I would say like that's where like the Bay's ethos really is. But in terms of like my shows and the ones that are like hold like the venues that hold a place for me, it would definitely be Bricks because that's where I first started throwing like my residency, at least in Oakland. That was like my entry to throwing shows in Oakland. Before that, it was Elbow Room. Um, I really love El Rio just because of like what they represent and
Yeah.
the type of programming they do. And I have my residency at Underground SF because of Tall, so I also owe Tall for that. And I feel like F8 has become also because of Tall. F8 has become like that kind of spot for me as well. Just the programming is pretty good, at least for the shows that I go to, and they kind of let you do your thing. So um, I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but yeah.
Cool. Ben, you mind chiming
Totally.
in?
Yeah. Projects I got going on. Well, people can catch my radio residency on Hyde FM, which is like a sick local independent online radio station. Bedtime routine every third Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. I play like sleepy music to listen to before you go to bed. Um, Another project that's really dear to my heart, I mentioned it briefly before, it's called Crip Ecstasy.
Mhm.
So I am a co-producer on that with my partner Octavia Hingle, who is a super talented local dancer, multidisciplinary artist. And both of us, I'm chronically ill, disabled. So are they, and we do lots of different types of events that are focused, cater to the disabled community. So we, again, shout out Tall. Our first event was with No Bias. Truly, like they're everywhere. So that was like a pretty traditional kind of like renegade rave, but masking was enforced throughout, wheelchair accessible venue, accessible bathrooms, probably other stuff that I'm forgetting. So yes, that's a project that's really dear. And then I think by the time this is posted, you can check out just DJ Fridge Productions. That's kind of my own independent project. We have a really great show coming up at Arcana, October 16th, with some really great local and touring artists. So check that out. And yeah, local venues. I don't know. I don't have anything groundbreaking. I mean, like Jorge said, the Renegades, a good Renegade is always unbeatable. I also am partial to F8. I like Public Works a lot for like a bigger venue that is still going to have some great programming and generally some good crowds. Yeah, Underground SF is a great intimate venue that also has some great programming. Yeah, I think that sums it up.
Tight. Daria, you have any words?
Yeah. I mean, anytime anyone asks me about venues in the Bay, I always say don't follow venues, follow artists.
Yeah.
I think the approach I've seen in multiple crews I've been a part of, No Bias included, is that you kind of have to infiltrate a space and make it yours. I don't think a lot of places in the Bay really have just kind of like a mainstay audience where it's like you could just walk in any day and like find a good DJ.
Yeah. The venues aren't producing most of these parties. Like it's fully like they're the real estate basically.
Yeah, so it's a lot of like trying to convince them to let you use their space to bring the people in, and then if they're impressed and they see that you're bringing in people they don't know how to bring in otherwise, then like they'll let you stay. So, I do think that like a lot of the reasons why some of these spaces that we've mentioned are mainstays to us is because of the promoters and the artists who really made efforts to claim ground in those spaces, less so than the venues themselves. But yeah, obviously, like I think my favorite ones that kind of embolden the spirit are all ones that we probably shouldn't name publicly. But yeah, follow DJs around, and you'll find the right time and space.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, yeah. So like, there's party coming up in October, as we've heard. Yeah, I don't know. Like, we could end on, if you're down to like kind of mention who you find yourself like playing a lot of recently, like artist wise, so that maybe people could get like a sense for what they will hear if they come to one of your parties.
Sure, I can start off. I'm always going to play some Bastion Goat. I'm always going to play some Richard. There's like this No Bias EP called Beat Freaks that just came out.
Sweet.
Which is so sick. I've been rinsing that. And also just got to give a shout out to Sly Stone, RIP. I've been playing every Sly Stone edit I can find. Bay Area legend.
Yeah, tight.
I can go. I feel like right now I'm definitely in like producer mode more than DJ mode, like internally. And I've just been listening to a lot of So Def bass all stars from like 1997, just because that was like peak like Freaknik
Atlanta, yeah, totally.
So I've just been listening to that and like nerding out on how Lil Jon is just somehow involved in everything. So I've definitely been listening to a lot of that, and then I think just like on a more like vocal led level, I just listen to a lot of Kalela all the time. And then in terms of like, I mean, I listen to a lot of Latin music, so I'm definitely like nostalgic for like reggaeton from the early 2000s. Generally, it's like my North Star with production, even though I can never recreate it, like, but that's kind of like where the good stuff happens anyway. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, for me, I'll shout out, it's a local collective of producers called Cap Street Project. They're really amazing. That's going to be all local Bay Area people at Skis, Brick, Benji Zero. I think that's like their core artists, but that's really amazing. CAPP Street Project. I also have been digging this Moroccan artist called Kosh, Kosh. And I kind of just finally started listening to Bob Dylan and liking it. So I've been like listening to a lot of Dylan, but that's like, he doesn't need a shout out, you know?
Yeah, he's also a Zio.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't. Okay, well,
he's written some like pro-Israel songs.
Damn. Okay, well, I didn't know that. You can keep it in though. See, none of us are perfect.
It's true.
Yeah, not to crush your dreams.
Yeah.
Come on, Bob.
I know. Well, yeah, I just want to say thank you all for like going and like creating culture locally that people can partake in, that is less or not Zionist. Like hopefully we'll see you at one of these like upcoming parties. Thank you all. Like thank you Tall also.
Yeah,
sounds
Tall
like has been a big influence on the local scene. So thank you all, and we'll like link to some of these parties and some of these projects in the show notes.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us.
DIY forever.
For sure, 100%.
Thank you for listening to the show, and especially thank you to everyone who is contributing over at patreon.com/Sad Francisco. You're making it possible for Sad Francisco to exist. And if you're not already a member, think about joining, again, it's patreon.com/San Francisco.